My father died with a secret. Then we found the truth hidden for 30 years. My father was the kind of man everyone trusted. To the outside world, he was a good husband, a hard-working father, a man who spent his entire life protecting his family. For decades, we believed we knew everything about him. We knew his habits. We knew his stories. We knew the sacrifices he made for us. But after he passed away, we discovered something hidden inside his old house. A small wooden box, covered with dust, locked away where nobody would ever find it. Inside were old photographs, handwritten letters, and a truth my father had carried silently for more than 30 years. At first, we thought we had discovered a betrayal, a secret that would destroy everything we believed about him. But the deeper we looked, the more we realized something painful. My father wasn't hiding a secret because he didn't love us. He was hiding a part of himself because he was afraid of what the truth would do to the people he protected. Because sometimes the people who seem the strongest are the ones carrying the heaviest burdens alone. And sometimes the hardest person to understand is the person who spent their entire life trying to protect you. Before the secret, there was a man everyone believed they understood. His name was remembered not because he was famous, not because he had great achievements, but because of the way he showed up for the people he loved. To his children, he was the first person they looked up to, the man who held their hand when they were afraid, the voice that encouraged them when they failed, the person who worked quietly behind the scenes so they could have a better life. He wasn't perfect. He had flaws. He made mistakes. But as children, they didn't see those things. They saw their father as someone who could fix anything. When the family needed something, he found a way. When difficult times came, he carried the burden without complaining. He woke up early, worked long hours, and came home exhausted, but still found time to ask, "How was your day?" Those simple moments became memories they would treasure years later. The family home was filled with ordinary moments, Sunday dinners, birthday celebrations, old family traditions, photographs hanging on the walls, small memories that seemed meaningless at the time, but became priceless after he was gone. As the years passed, his children grew older. They built their own lives. They moved away. They became busy with their own responsibilities. But one thing never changed. They believed their father would always be there. Because some people become so important in our lives that we forget they are human. We forget they can become tired. We forget they carry fears. We forget they have stories they never tell. To his family, he was the person who protected everyone else, the person who always had answers, the person who seemed unbreakable. But behind that familiar smile, behind those years of sacrifice, there was a part of his life that nobody knew about, a chapter he never shared, a memory he buried, a truth he carried alone. And they would only discover it after he was no longer there to explain. The day their father was buried, the family thought the hardest part was saying goodbye. They believed the pain would come from the empty chair at the dinner table, from hearing his voice in old recordings, from walking into a house that no longer felt the same. But they never expected that his absence would reveal something he had spent decades hiding. After the funeral, the family returned to the old house, the place where so many memories had been created. Every room carried a piece of his life. The worn-out chair where he used to read every evening, the kitchen where he prepared breakfast, the walls covered with photographs of moments they thought they understood. They came there to organize his belongings, to decide what to keep, what to donate, what memories they would carry forward. But while cleaning the storage area upstairs, they noticed something unusual. Behind a row of old boxes, there was a wooden panel that didn't match the wall. Something about it felt different, almost like it had been hidden intentionally. When they moved the boxes away, they found a small wooden box covered with years of dust. It wasn't something that had been forgotten. It looked like something that had been carefully protected. The box was old, the lock was worn, and for a moment everyone stood silently because they all felt the same question. Why would their father hide this? Inside the box were things they never expected to find. Old letters, photographs they had never seen before, documents with unfamiliar names, and memories from a time before they were born. The room became silent as they looked through everything. Every discovery created more questions. Who were these people? Why had their father kept these things hidden, and why had he never told them? They had spent their entire lives believing they knew their father's story, but now they were holding pieces of a past that had never been shared. The man they thought they understood suddenly became a mystery, and for the first time they realized something uncomfortable. Their father had lived an entire life before he became their father, a life filled with choices, regrets, love, and secrets. Secrets that were waiting inside that box. For the first time in their lives, the children were looking at their father not as a parent, but as a person with a past they never knew. Inside the old wooden box were pieces of a story that had been carefully hidden for decades. The first letter they opened was written many years before they were born. The handwriting was familiar. It was their father's, but the words felt like they belonged to someone they never met. A younger man, a man who had dreams, a man who had fears, a man who had once faced a decision that changed the direction of his entire life. The letters revealed a chapter their father had never spoken about, a difficult period filled with uncertainty, loss, and choices he had to make alone. The family discovered that before he became the father they knew, he had experienced a pain that shaped the person he became. There were names they didn't recognize, places they had never heard of, memories that existed before their family story began. At first, the discovery felt like a betrayal. They wondered, why did he hide this from us? Why didn't he trust us with the truth? What else did we never know? Anger appeared before understanding, because secrets often create questions before they create compassion. But as they continued reading, they began to see something different. Their father wasn't hiding his past because he was ashamed of them. He was carrying a burden he believed was his responsibility alone. Some wounds are not hidden because people want to deceive others. Sometimes they are hidden because people are afraid that revealing the truth will hurt the ones they love. The photographs showed a younger version of their father, not the strong man they remembered, not the person who always had answers, but a young man who was simply trying to survive difficult moments, a man who made choices with the limited knowledge and emotions he had at that time. The family slowly realized something painful. They had spent their lives seeing their father as someone who protected them, but they never considered who protected him. Who listened to his fears, who helped him when he was broken, who carried his pain when nobody was watching. The secret they discovered was not just about what happened decades ago. It was about understanding the person behind the role. Because every parent was once a young person with dreams, mistakes, and stories of their own. And sometimes the truth we discover after someone is gone is not meant to destroy the memories we have of them. It is meant to help us finally understand them. The truth was no longer hidden, but knowing the truth did not immediately bring peace. Sometimes the hardest part of discovering a secret is not finding the answer. It is accepting what that answer means. The family sat together in the same house where they had created thousands of memories, but for the first time, they were looking at their father differently. Some felt anger, some felt sadness, some felt betrayed, because they wondered why the person they trusted most had kept such an important part of his life away from them. One of the children asked a question that had been silently growing inside everyone. If he loved us so much, why didn't he tell us? It was a painful question, because secrets can feel like walls. And when someone we love hides something from us, we often believe the secret means they didn't trust us. But as they studied the letters more carefully, they began seeing another possibility. Their father wasn't protecting himself, he was protecting them. The decisions he made years ago were not simple. There were no perfect choices, only difficult ones. He had faced moments where every option carried pain, and he chose the path he believed would cause the least harm to the people he loved. The family began having conversations they never had before. They shared memories. They talked about moments when their father seemed distant, moments when he looked lost but never explained why, moments when they thought he was simply being quiet, but maybe he was carrying something heavy. They realized something important. Their father had spent his entire life being strong for everyone else, but nobody ever asked if he was tired. Nobody ever asked what he needed. Nobody ever asked about the battles he fought before they knew his name. The image of their father as a perfect man began to disappear, but something more meaningful replaced it: understanding. Because perfection creates distance, but humanity creates connection. They finally saw him as he truly was, a man who loved deeply, a man who made mistakes, a man who carried regrets, a man who tried his best with the life he was given. The secret didn't erase the pain, it didn't change the past, but it changed the way they remembered him. They no longer saw only the father they raised. They saw the person who existed before them. And for the first time, they understood that forgiveness is not about saying everything was right. For years, the family believed their father was the strongest person they knew, the man who always had solutions, the man who never showed fear, the man who carried everyone else's problems without asking for help. But after discovering the truth, they finally understood something. Their father was never made of stone. He was human. He had moments of doubt, moments of regret, moments when he had to make impossible choices without knowing whether he was making the right decision. The secret they discovered did not change who he was. It completed the picture. They remembered the father who taught them how to be strong, but now they also saw the young man who had once been afraid. They remembered the father who protected the family, but now they understood the person who needed protection too. The letters revealed one final message, not an explanation, not an excuse, but a confession from a man who knew he would not be there forever. He wrote about his love for his family, about the moments he wished he had handled differently, about the things he was never brave enough to say. And most importantly, he wrote that his greatest hope was not for his children to remember him as a perfect father. He wanted them to remember him as someone who tried, someone who loved them, someone who made mistakes but never stopped caring. That realization changed everything. Because children often spend their lives searching for the perfect version of their parents, but eventually they discover the truth. There is no perfect parent, only imperfect people trying to give love the best way they know how. The family returned to the old house one final time. They walked through the rooms filled with memories, the same rooms that once held unanswered questions, now held understanding. They placed the old box back where it belonged, not hidden, not forgotten, but preserved as a reminder that every person has chapters others never see. A reminder that every family carries stories beneath the surface, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest gift someone leaves behind is not what they give us, it is what they teach us. Years later, when they spoke about their father, they no longer described him as a perfect man. They described him as a real one, a man who loved, a man who struggled, a man who carried a secret because he was trying to protect the people who mattered most. And maybe that was the truth they were always meant to find.
The psychology behind family secrets and the people we never fully know. At the beginning of this story, the family believed they were searching for a secret, but what they discovered was something much deeper. They discovered a human being, a person with fears, regrets, dreams, and painful memories that existed long before they became the father they knew. Because one of the hardest truths about family is this: we know the role people play in our lives, but we don't always know the battles they fought before we arrived. Many people assume that secrets are always created because someone wants to deceive others, but human behavior is more complicated. Sometimes people hide the truth because of fear of hurting the people they love, shame about their past, protecting their family's image, believing they can carry the burden alone. A parent may think, if I tell them, I will only create pain. So they choose silence, not because they don't care, but because they care too much. However, silence also has consequences. A secret may protect people from pain today, but it can create confusion tomorrow. When we are children, we often see our parents as superheroes. They seem to know everything. They seem stronger than everyone else. They seem impossible to break. But as we grow older, we slowly discover something important. Our parents were never superheroes. They were people. They had fears they never shared, dreams they abandoned, moments when they felt lost. The transition from seeing parents as perfect to seeing them as human is a natural part of emotional maturity. Because understanding someone does not require believing they never made mistakes. It requires seeing the whole person. Many people carry emotional wounds silently for years. They continue working, they continue smiling, they continue supporting others. But behind that strength may be unresolved pain. Psychologists often describe this as emotional suppression. A person pushes difficult memories away because facing them feels too painful. Over time, that hidden pain can influence relationships, communication, emotional availability, and personal decisions. The people around them may see the behavior, but never see the reason behind it. When people discover a hidden truth about someone they love, their first reaction is often emotional. Anger, confusion, disappointment. Because the mind struggles when two different versions of a person exist at the same time. The person I knew and the person I just discovered. But both versions can be true. A person can be loving and still have made mistakes. A person can protect their family and still carry regrets. Human beings are not defined by one chapter of their lives. One of the greatest lessons from this story is learning to ask different questions. Instead of, "Why did they do this?" try asking, "What did they experience that led them here?" Understanding does not mean approving every choice. It means recognizing that every action has a story behind it. Every person has a history we cannot fully see. The people closest to us often have stories we never hear. Our parents, our grandparents, our loved ones. They may carry memories they never share, pain they never explain, sacrifices we never notice. Sometimes we only understand someone's journey after they are gone. And that is why one of the most important things we can do is ask questions while we still have time. Listen while people can still answer. Say the words we often postpone. Thank you. I understand. I love you. Because one day, the stories we never asked about may become the answers we can no longer receive.
The secret was never the truth. It was the love behind it. For years, the family believed their father left behind a secret, something hidden, something they were never supposed to discover. But after reading his final words, they realized they were looking at it the wrong way. The secret was not the most important part of the story. The important part was understanding the man behind it. A man who spent his life protecting others. A man who carried pain quietly. A man who made choices with the limited understanding he had at that moment. He was not perfect. He never needed to be, because the greatest lesson their father left behind was not about avoiding mistakes. It was about understanding that every person carries a story we cannot see. Every smile may hide a struggle. Every sacrifice may have a reason. Every person we love has chapters that existed before we became part of their story. And maybe that is the hardest thing about losing someone. Not just accepting that they are gone, but realizing there are questions we will never be able to ask, conversations we will never have, stories we will never hear directly from them. But sometimes the pieces they leave behind are enough. A photograph, a letter, a memory, a small reminder that they were here, that they loved, that they tried. So before the people we care about become memories, take the time to listen. Ask about their past. Ask about their dreams. Ask about the things they never talk about. Because everyone has a story. And sometimes the stories we never hear are the ones that help us understand them the most. This was not a story about a perfect father. It was a story about a real one, a man who carried a secret for 30 years only to reveal the greatest truth of all. Love is not about being flawless. Love is about trying, protecting, and being there even when nobody sees the struggle behind it. If this story touched you, take a moment to think about the people in your life. Is there someone whose story you have never asked about? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Tribal Survival Feast for more emotional human stories about love, family, secrets, and the choices that shape our lives. Because behind every person, there is a story waiting to be understood.